Picture this. Your phone rings. A stranger's voice, tight with frustration, tells you they got a package they never ordered. And somehow, it has your company's name on it. Now imagine that happening every single week, for 3 years. And imagine that the people responsible knew exactly what they were doing to you, and told you, in writing, to just make the problem disappear. I didn't disappear. I got even. And I did it with nothing more than a phone number. If you've ever been brushed off by some faceless company that couldn't be bothered to fix a problem they created, you're going to love this one. This is the story of how one warehouse supervisor turned a corporate not our problem into 3 years of ringing phones for the people who deserved it. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and let's get into it. The setup. For years, I worked as a warehouse supervisor for an HVAC company. The kind of unglamorous, steady job where your biggest daily challenge is making sure the right pallets get loaded onto the right trucks. We weren't flashy. We didn't ship to individual customers. We moved heating and cooling equipment to contractors and distributors, day in, day out. For a long time, we leased a modest warehouse on the edge of town. It did the job, but as the company grew, boxes started stacking higher, aisles got tighter, and eventually the math stopped working. When our lease came up for renewal, ownership decided it was time to move to something bigger. We packed up, said goodbye to a building that had our fingerprints all over it, and moved into a new facility across town. I didn't think twice about the old place again. Why would I? We signed the paperwork, handed back the keys, and moved on with our lives. That's how leases work. You leave, someone else moves in, and the story ends there. Except it didn't end there. Not even close. The first sign of trouble. About a year after the move, my phone rang at my desk. A woman on the other end, polite but clearly annoyed, explained that she'd received a package she never ordered, some earbuds, and needed to return them. I sat there for a second, genuinely confused. We were an HVAC warehouse. We didn't stock earbuds. We didn't ship small parcels to random addresses. Something wasn't adding up. Ma'am, we don't stock or ship earbuds. I told her. What makes you think this came from us? Your address is right on the package, she said, a little sharper now. I asked her to snap a photo and send it over. Sure enough, there it was. Our old address. Not a single other identifying detail. No company name. No return contact, nothing. Just an address that used to be ours, printed on a box she never asked for. I explained the situation as clearly as I could. We'd moved over a year ago. This wasn't our building anymore, and she needed to track down whoever was leasing that space now. She wasn't thrilled, but she thanked me and hung up. I shrugged it off. One weird call. Not my problem anymore. The pattern emerges. A week later, my phone rang again. Same story. Different item, jewelry this time, if I remember right. Same confused, slightly irritated stranger on the other end. Same old address printed with zero other information. That's when the small, uncomfortable feeling in my gut started to harden into something else. This wasn't a one-off mistake. This was a pattern, and it was going to keep happening unless someone fixed it. I tried to do the responsible thing. I got online and tried to figure out who exactly had taken over our old space, hoping I could just reach out directly and ask them to slap their own name and number on their shipments. No luck. Whatever this new company was, they weren't easy to find. So I did what any reasonable supervisor would do. I emailed our old landlord. I laid it out plainly. People were calling me, weeks and months after we'd left, because whoever moved into our old building wasn't putting any identifying information, no name, no phone number, on the packages they shipped out. I asked her to pass the message along and get it corrected. Simple request. Reasonable request. A couple of days later, her reply landed in my inbox, and I remember reading it twice because I genuinely couldn't believe what it said. The new tenant, some kind of last-mile delivery or fulfillment operation, had told her, and I'm paraphrasing only slightly, "We are just a final delivery company. We do not have any phones. If someone forgot they ordered something, tell them to throw it away." I stared at my monitor. No phones. An entire company, operating out of a real warehouse, moving real packages to real customers, and they wanted me to believe they simply didn't have a single telephone line anywhere on the premises? I wrote back immediately, annoyed now. That has to be bullshit. How does a company not have any phones? They need to put their name and number on their shipments so people stop calling me. The moment everything changed, her response came the next day, and it was the kind of sentence that changes how you look at an entire situation. They say they do not have phones. Ask Google to remove all your company history from that address. I sat back in my chair and just processed that for a moment. Think about what was actually being asked of me here. A company was shipping merchandise with zero contact information printed on the packaging. A decision that was clearly, deliberately saving them money and hassle. And when the inevitable confused, frustrated customers went looking for someone to call, Google was doing exactly what Google does, surfacing the most relevant, most established business history tied to that address, which was us, because we'd been there for years and had a real footprint online. Instead of the responsible party fixing their own packaging, instead of them spending 5 minutes and a few cents printing their actual name and number, the solution being handed to me was to go scrub my own company's digital history, to erase years of legitimate business presence, so that some other company could keep operating in the shadows and let their confused, angry customers hit a dead end. That's not a customer service oversight. That's a company hiding behind someone else's identity because it's cheaper and easier than being accountable for their own shipments. I remember the exact feeling in my chest reading that email a second time. It wasn't rage, exactly. It was colder than that. It was the specific, simmering frustration of being told, essentially, your problem is yours to solve, and our convenience is non-negotiable. Every excuse, every dodge, every single interaction had been this company quietly pushing their responsibility onto someone else's plate and walking away clean. Fine, I thought. Fine. You don't want to put a phone number on your packages? Great. Then I'll make sure you get all the phone calls you deserve. I didn't slam my laptop shut. I didn't send an angry reply demanding action. I just let it settle. Something shifted in me that afternoon. Not hot anger, but a quiet, patient resolve. I wasn't going to fight a company that had already told me, in writing, that they weren't going to budge. Landlords and tenants don't answer to warehouse supervisors. I had no leverage over their business practices, but I had leverage over one thing: information. I had a phone number, my old landlord's cell number, the same number she'd used to email me these gems of corporate indifference. And every single week, like clockwork, a confused stranger was going to call me looking for someone to blame. I decided right then, I would keep answering every single call. I'd stay polite. I'd stay professional. And I would send every one of them exactly where they needed to go. Execution. 3 years of quiet justice. For the next 3 years, it played out almost exactly the same way. Week after week, roughly once a week on average. The phone rings. A stranger, sometimes apologetic, sometimes irritated, explains they got a package they never ordered, and it has our old address on it. I'd let them finish. I'd stay calm, even friendly. I completely understand the confusion, I'd say. That's actually our old address. We moved a few years back. The company shipping out of that building now doesn't include any contact information on their packages, unfortunately. But I do have a number for the property manager who handles that building. She can get you pointed in the right direction. And then I'd read off my old landlord's cell number. Every time. Without fail. I never raised my voice. I never editorialized on the call. I didn't need to. I was simply doing exactly what I'd been told to do. Send confused customers to the people actually responsible for the mess. The only difference was I stopped being the free customer service department for a company that had explicitly refused to identify itself. Every call I redirected was one more small ping landing on a phone that wasn't mine to worry about anymore. Does this company even have a real number? Question finally got answered, just not by me, and not in the way that made anyone's life easier over there. I never got a furious call back, demanding I stop. I never got so much as a follow-up email asking me to reconsider. But I didn't need dramatic confirmation to know exactly what was happening on the other end of that redirected number. Week after week, month after month, for 3 straight years. Somewhere, a phone that supposedly didn't exist was ringing constantly with confused strangers, holding packages of earbuds and jewelry, and whatever else got shipped out with zero accountability attached. Somewhere, a landlord who told me to erase my own company's history instead of doing the simple, decent thing was fielding the exact headache she tried to hand to me. There was no shouting match, no viral confrontation, just quiet, sustained consequences finally landing exactly where they belonged. And honestly, that felt more satisfying than any argument ever could have. Sometimes justice isn't loud. Sometimes it's just making sure the people who created a problem finally have to live with it themselves. This company had every opportunity to do the right thing. Print a name, print a number, take 5 minutes of responsibility. Instead, they chose the cheap way out and expected a stranger to absorb the cost. All I did was stop absorbing it. If this story scratched that itch for quiet, well-earned payback, smash that like button and drop a comment. What's the pettiest, most satisfying revenge you've ever pulled off or witnessed? And if you want more stories like this one, make sure you're subscribed, because there are plenty more where this came from.